My mother posted my failure online like a trophy, complete with a photo and her harsh judgment. Relatives liked, commented, and even scheduled a party to celebrate my downfall. I did not clarify or fight back. I stayed silent because I was waiting for exactly one name to appear. When it finally hit Forbes, I decided to let them laugh just one last time. My name is Cora Ellington, and the first thing I saw this morning was my own social obituary. It was not a literal death notice, of course. In the suffocating ecosystem of Briarwood, Ohio, social death is far worse than physical death. Physical death gets you casseroles and sympathy cards. Social death gets you whispered about in the produce aisle and dissected at Sunday potlucks. I woke up at 6 a.m. to a phone that was vibrating so intensely I thought it might explode on my nightstand. I had 34 notifications. That number alone made my stomach turn over. I am a risk analyst at Northline Risk and Compliance. I do not get 34 personal notifications unless a building has burned down or someone has died. I swiped the screen open, squinting against the harsh blue light, and there it was. The notification that started it all came from Facebook. It was a post from Darlene Ellington, my mother. The caption was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive destruction. It read, "My heart is breaking today for my daughter. It is so hard to watch your children fall, especially when they refuse to listen to your advice for years. Cora has come home from the city after losing everything. No job, deep in debt. It is a hard lesson in humility. But maybe now she will learn that arrogance comes before a fall. Please pray for her as she starts over from zero. We will always love her, even when she fails." Below the text was a photograph. I stared at it, blinking the sleep out of my eyes, trying to comprehend what I was looking at. It was me. The photo was grainy and taken from a distance, shot from a low angle like something a paparazzo would snap of a disgraced celebrity. In the image, I was walking out of the glass doors of the Northline building. I was wearing my oversized gray coat, looking down at the pavement, and I was carrying a cardboard box. To the untrained eye, or to the eager eyes of Briarwood gossip mongers, it was the universal symbol of corporate termination, the walk of shame, the cardboard box full of staplers and framed photos of a cat I do not own. The timestamps told me everything. The photo was taken yesterday afternoon at 4 o'clock. I remembered that moment. I had been leaving the office early because I had been in meetings since 5 a.m. The box did not contain my personal belongings because I had been fired. It contained 3 binders of due diligence reports and a prototype server unit I needed to transport to a secure off-site location. I was looking down because I was reading a text message from my lawyer confirming that the final signature pages had cleared escrow, but my mother did not know that, or maybe she did, and she simply did not care. I sat up in bed, the sheets pooling around my waist, and scrolled down. The post had been up for only 2 hours, and it already had 112 likes and 40 comments. In our small town, those were viral numbers. My mother had effectively launched a marketing campaign for my destruction while I was sleeping. I began to read the comments, and it was like watching vultures descend on a fresh carcass. Cousin Betsy had written, "Oh, Darlene, you are such a saint for taking her back. I always said city life would chew her up. She was too proud for her own good." My uncle Ralph, a man who has not held a steady job since 1998, chimed in with classic case of flying too close to the sun. Maybe now she will learn the value of hard work like the rest of us. A woman from my mother's prayer circle added, "God has a way of humbling us. This is a blessing in disguise. Stay strong." Darlene, they were eating it up. They were feasting on the idea of Cora Ellington, the girl who left, the girl who thought she was better than Briarwood, finally crawling back on her hands and knees. It validated every insecurity they had ever felt about my departure. If I failed, it meant they were right to never try. I felt a surge of heat rise up my neck. It was not just anger, it was a cold, sharp sense of betrayal. My mother had not called me. She had not asked me what was in the box. She had not asked why I was in town. She had seen me, snapped a photo like a spy, and crafted a narrative that served her need to be the long-suffering matriarch. She needed a tragedy to manage, And since I did not have one, she manufactured it. Then a text message banner slid down from the top of my screen. It was from Aunt Marcia. Marcia, just saw your mom's post. We are all so sorry. Honey, but honestly, it is for the best. We are having a welcome home dinner at the church hall this Sunday after service, a sort of fresh start party. You need to come. It is time you got back to your proper place with your family. My proper place. The phrase hung in the air of my silent apartment like a bad smell. My proper place was beneath them. My proper place was needing them. My proper place was being the cautionary tale they could pity, so they could feel better about their own stagnation. I typed out a response. My thumbs hovered over the glass. I was not fired. I am fine. This is a lie. I stopped. I looked back at the Facebook post. I looked at the sheer volume of glee in the comments. If I commented now, if I fought back, what would happen? I would look defensive. I would look like I was in denial. My mother had framed this perfectly. She had painted me as arrogant and proud. If I denied it, I was just proving her point. See, she cannot even admit she failed. She is delusional. And there was another problem, a massive, legal problem. I actually could not explain what I was doing. Yesterday afternoon, I had not been fired. I had signed a definitive agreement to sell the specialized fraud detection software I had been building for the last 4 years. It was a project I had coded on nights and weekends, a side hustle that turned into a monster. The buyer was a major financial conglomerate. The deal was closed. The money and amount that would make Uncle Ralph have a heart attack was sitting in an escrow account, set to release on Monday morning. But I had signed a non-disclosure agreement, a strict one. I could not announce the sale until the press release went out. I could not discuss the terms. I could not even name the buyer until the embargo was lifted. If I went on Facebook and screamed, "I just sold my company for millions of dollars," I would be in breach of contract. I could lose the deal. I could be sued. My mother knew I was working on something big. I had told her vaguely a month ago that I was entering a quiet period for a major project. She knew I could not talk about work. She had weaponized my silence. She knew I could not defend myself without breaking my contract. So she filled the void with her own story. It was tactical. It was brilliant. It was evil. I got out of bed and walked to the window. My apartment in the city was quiet, but I could feel the noise from Briarwood radiating through the phone in my hand. I opened my Messenger app and saw that my mother had been active. She was not just posting publicly, she was managing the narrative privately. I have a fake account I use to monitor local garage sales, a habit from my college days when I needed cheap furniture. I saw that my mother was online in the community group chat. I clicked on a thread that a sympathetic cousin had forwarded to me weeks ago. Thinking I had left it, there was a message from Darlene sent 10 minutes ago. Don't let Cora bend your ear if she calls. She's in a bad state mentally. She might try to make up stories about big deals or secret projects to hide the shame. Just nod and love her. But don't believe a word. She is in denial. My hand tightened around the phone. She was inoculating them against the truth. She was making sure that even if I did try to explain, no one would believe me. She had branded me a liar before I had even opened my mouth. I walked into my kitchen and poured a glass of cold water. I drank it in one long gulp, trying to cool the fire in my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive down to Briarwood, kick open the door of my childhood home, and throw the legal documents on the kitchen table, but I did not. I set the glass down on the counter with a sharp click. If I reacted now, I would just be the crazy daughter. I would be the dramatic, unstable failure my mother wanted me to be. She wanted a reaction. She wanted me to call her crying, begging her to take it down, so she could tell me to hush and let her take care of me. She wanted to be the savior, which meant I had to be the victim. I looked at the date on my phone. Today was Friday. Aunt Marcia had mentioned a dinner on Sunday, a celebration of my return to the bottom of the barrel. Sunday. My heart skipped a beat. I unlocked my phone again and checked my calendar. I checked the email from my publicist. I checked the embargo date on the press release, the Forbes article, the exclusive interview I had given 3 weeks ago. The one where they profiled the hidden architects of modern fintech was scheduled to go live on Sunday evening. It was a digital exclusive, set to drop at 8 o'clock at night to catch the Monday morning news cycle in global markets. Sunday. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. It was not a nice smile. It was the kind of smile a wolf makes when the trap snaps shut. But the hunter's leg is the one inside it. They wanted a show. They wanted a celebration. They wanted to sit around a table at the church hall, pat me on the head, and feel superior because Cora Ellington had finally failed. They wanted to feast on my humility. I looked at Aunt Marcia's text again. "It is time you got back to your proper place." I did not reply to the Facebook comments. I did not call my mother. I did not post a vague status update about haters. I simply opened the text thread with Aunt Marcia and typed 2 words. "I'll be there." I hit send. Then I put the phone down, face down on the counter. Let them have their 48 hours of glee. Let them gossip. Let them plan their menu of pity and condescension. Let Darlene Ellington think she has won the war for the narrative. I would go to that dinner. I would sit there and take every barb, every fake prayer, every smug look. I would let them inflate their egos until they were ready to burst. Because at 8 o'clock on Sunday, I wasn't just bringing a potato salad to the potluck. I was bringing the truth, and it was going to hit them harder than a freight train. I walked back to my bedroom and looked at the dress I had bought for the closing dinner next week. It was hanging on the door. It was sleek, professional, and cost more than my mother's car. "Enjoy the party, Mom," I whispered to the empty room. "I will bring the gifts." To understand why I did not get in my car and drive straight to Briarwood to scream the truth, you have to understand the specific architecture of the house I grew up in. I do not mean the physical beams and drywall. I mean the psychological structure. In the Ellington household, truth was never a fixed point. Truth was whatever version of reality made my mother look like a saint, and everyone else look like a project she was graciously managing. Darlene Ellington was a woman who lived her life as if there were an invisible audience seated in our living room, judging her performance. To the public, she was the picture of maternal sacrifice. She was the woman who organized the church bake sales, the woman who always had a casserole ready for a grieving neighbor, the woman who sighed heavily and told everyone how hard she worked to keep her family on the right path. But inside the house, the warmth evaporated the moment the front door closed. Her love was not a gift. It was a transaction, and the currency was total obedience. If you stepped out of line, she did not hit you. She did something far more effective. She embarrassed you until you wished you could simply cease to exist. This dynamic was most visible in how she treated my brother, Grant, versus how she treated me. Grant was the golden child. He was 2 years younger than me, with a winning smile and a complete lack of accountability. From the time he was a toddler, he was treated as an investment that was destined to pay off. If Grant failed a math test, it was because the teacher was incompetent. If Grant crashed the car, it was because the road was icy. Even in July, he was protected, polished, and presented to the world as evidence of Darlene's superior parenting. I, on the other hand, was the control group. I was the difficult one. I was stubborn. If I got an A-, I was asked why I had been too lazy to get an A+. If I voiced an opinion that differed from hers, I was accused of being disrespectful and arrogant. I grew up believing that my primary function in the family was to be the problem that my mother heroically endured. This is why I left the moment I turned 18. I did not run away in the middle of the night. I simply packed my bags and moved to the city to attend a state university on a patchwork of scholarships and student loans. I worked 2 jobs. I took the night shift at a diner and worked the front desk of a gym in the mornings. I was exhausted for 4 straight years, but I made a vow to myself that I would never ask Darlene for a single dime. I knew the rules in my family. Money was not supported. It was leverage. If Darlene bought you a winter coat, she owned the right to tell you where to wear it, how to clean it, and how ungrateful you were for not wearing it enough. I watched her do it to Grant constantly. She paid for his mistakes, and in return, he became her puppet. I chose poverty over that kind of debt. My current career was a direct result of that need for independence. but it was also the perfect cover for what was happening now. I worked at Northline Risk and Compliance. To my mother, and to most of Briarwood, my job was incredibly dull. I was a risk analyst. I spent my days looking at spreadsheets, checking regulatory compliance for mid-sized banks, and ensuring that protocols were followed. It was unsexy, rigorous work. It was stable, boring, and completely devoid of glamour. That was exactly how I liked it. The mundane nature of my day job made it easy for my mother to dismiss me. She would tell her friends, "Cora is in finance," with a vague wave of her hand, trying to make it sound impressive, but privately she would sneer at me. "You are just a cog in a machine, Cora," she would say during our infrequent phone calls. "You sit in a box all day staring at numbers. Is that really living?" She had no idea that for the last 4 years, the box I was sitting in was actually a launch pad. She did not know about the nights I spent awake until 3 in the morning, eyes burning, writing code. She did not know that while Northline paid my rent, my passion was building a proprietary algorithm designed to detect microfraud in high-frequency trading. It started as a side project, a way to solve a puzzle that annoyed me. Then it became a tool. Then it became a platform. I called it Larkspire. It was sleek, it was fast, and it did things that the major legacy systems could not touch. I kept it a secret because I knew what Darlene would do if she knew. I remembered when I was 22 and landed my first junior analyst role. I was so proud. I called her to share the news. Her immediate reaction was not congratulations, it was a scoff. "Do not think you are some big shot just because you got a desk job. Cora, you are going to get big-headed and crash. You always do." But a week later, I overheard her at the grocery store telling a neighbor, "Yes, Cora got that job because I stayed up all night helping her fix her resume. I practically had to force her to apply. She would be nowhere without my push." That was the pattern. If I failed, it was my character flaw. If I succeeded, it was her credit. So when I started building Larkspire, I locked it away. I did not tell her about the beta testing. I did not tell her about the initial interest from investors. I certainly did not tell her when the acquisition talks began 6 months ago. As far as she knew, I was just Cora the grinder, living in a small apartment, barely making ends meet, likely drowning in city debt. This misconception was the fuel for her current fire. She needed me to be failing. It was not just that she enjoyed my humiliation, although I suspected she did derive a sick sort of pleasure from it. It was that my failure was required for her narrative to function. I sat at my kitchen table, tracing the wood grain with my finger, thinking about the text messages I had seen earlier. Why now? Why was she going so hard on this specific story? At this specific moment, the answer, I realized, lay in the timing. Darlene had been hinting for months to her church circle that big changes were coming for the Ellington family. She loved to tease information to make herself the center of attention. She had likely insinuated that she was taking control of something, or that she was about to step into a new role of benevolent matriarch, but to play the savior, she needed a victim. She needed someone to rescue. Grant was already under her thumb, but he was messy. Rescuing Grant was old news. Everyone knew he was a screw-up, but rescuing Cora, the arrogant daughter who left town, that was a fresh storyline. That was a season finale event. By painting me as destitute and fired, she was preparing the ground for something. She was stripping me of my credibility so that when she made her move, whatever that move was, I would have no voice to object. If I tried to stand up for myself, she could point to my mental breakdown and my job loss as proof that I was unstable. "Poor Cora," they would say. "She is so traumatized by her failure that she is lashing out at her mother." It was a trap, a carefully constructed, psychological cage. And the irony was bitter. She thought she was kicking a stray dog while it was down. She had no idea she was poking a sleeping dragon. I thought about the money, the escrow account, the life-changing sum that would be accessible on Monday. I could buy her house 3 times over. I could buy the church hall where they planned to pity me. But it wasn't about the money. If I wrote her a check for $1 million today, she would take it, And then she would tell everyone I stole it, or that I was trying to buy her love because I was so guilty about my past. Money would not fix this. Money was just fuel. I needed to break the mechanism. I needed to dismantle the machine that turned my life into her content. I remembered a moment from when I was 16. I had saved up money from babysitting to buy a prom dress. It was beautiful, a deep emerald green. When I tried it on, I felt pretty for the first time in years. I walked into the living room to show her. Darlene had looked up from her magazine, stared at me for a long 10 seconds, and said, "It is a little tight around the hips, isn't it? We don't want you looking cheap, Cora. Maybe we should return it and get something that hides your shape better." I had cried in my room for 2 hours and refused to go to prom. The next day, she told my aunt. I tried to help her pick a dress, but she just threw a tantrum and decided not to go. She is so dramatic. That was the wound. It was not the dress. It was the way she took my joy, poisoned it, and then blamed me for dying. She was doing it again. This Facebook post, this failure, was just the adult version of the prom dress. She saw me walking out of my office, misinterpreted the box, and seized the opportunity to tell me I looked cheap, but I was not 16 anymore, and I was not alone. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I had not called in months, but one I knew would answer. "Grant," I said when the line connected. "Cora." His voice sounded tight, guarded. "Look, Mom told me not to talk to you right now. She says you are in a bad place and—" "I just want to know one thing," I interrupted, keeping my voice steady, devoid of the anger that was boiling in my gut. "Did you know she was going to post that picture?" There was silence on the other end, a long, guilty silence. She just wants to help you, Cora," Grant said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You know how she is. She thinks if she puts it out there, people will pray for you. She is worried about your finances." "My finances," I repeated. "Right. We just want you to come home on Sunday," Grant said, and there was a strange urgency in his tone. "Just come home, sign the papers she wants, and let her fix it. It will be easier for everyone." "Papers?" I asked sharply. "What papers?" "Just family stuff," Grant stammered, clearly realizing he had said too much. "You know, just come on Sunday." He hung up. I stared at the phone. Papers. So that was it. There was a legal angle. She wasn't just destroying my reputation for sport. She was clearing the path to get my signature on something. She needed the world to think I was incompetent so that whatever she put in front of me would look like a lifeline instead of a shackle. My mother did not know about the NDA. She did not know about the Forbes article. And she certainly did not know that her daughter, the failure, spent her days analyzing risk and detecting fraud. I had spent my entire career hunting people who manipulated data to hide the truth. I looked for patterns. I looked for discrepancies. I looked for the hidden motive behind the transaction. Darlene Ellington had just initiated a fraudulent transaction. She was trying to short-sell my reputation. I walked over to my laptop and opened a new folder. I named it Project Homecoming. If she wanted a failure, I would not give her one. But if she wanted a story, oh, I would give her a story. I would give her a story so undeniable, so public, and so complete that she would never be able to edit it. I started typing out a list of what I needed to do before Sunday. I needed to confirm the Forbes drop time. I needed to print out the bank confirmations, redacted but visible. And I needed to make sure I looked absolutely perfect when I walked into that church hall. The slow burn in my chest settled into a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't going to Briarwood to seek forgiveness. I was going there to conduct an audit. And Darlene was about to find out that her books did not balance. I needed a war council, and I needed it 5 minutes ago. I did not call my boyfriend, mostly because I did not have one. I did not call my therapist, because she would tell me to set healthy boundaries and breathe. I was way past breathing. I was in the phase of operation where you need someone who knows how to bury a body, metaphorically speaking, or at least how to spin the murder as self-defense. I dialed Tessa Vaughn. Tessa and I had been roommates sophomore year. while I was burying my nose in actuarial tables, Tessa was learning how to make people love things they should hate. She was now a crisis PR manager for a firm in Chicago, the kind of woman who could watch a senator burn down an orphanage and have him polling 5 points higher by Tuesday. She answered on the first ring. "I saw the post. I am sending you a breakdown right now." "You saw it?" I asked, pacing the length of my living room. "Tessa, she has tagged the location. She has people pity-liking a photo of me holding a cardboard box." "Cora, listen to me." Tessa's voice was sharp, cutting through my panic. "I am looking at this professionally. Stop being her daughter for a second and look at the screen. Look at the hashtags. Look at the timing. She posted this at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. That is peak engagement time for the local community demographic. She tagged the specific church group page. She didn't just type this out in a rage. She drafted this." I stopped pacing. I walked back to my laptop and looked at Darlene's post again. Tessa was right. My mother's usual Facebook presence was a chaotic mess of blurry photos and typos. This post was clean. The grammar was perfect. The emotional hook "arrogance comes before a fall" was placed exactly at the end of the first paragraph to ensure people clicked "see more." "It is a campaign," Tessa said. "It is a launch strategy. She is launching the Cora is a failure product line, and she is controlling the rollout." "Why?" I asked, though I was starting to suspect the answer. "Why put this much effort into humiliating me?" "Because if she controls the narrative of your failure, she controls the solution," Tessa said. "I see this with corporate clients all the time. You tank the stock price so you can buy back the shares cheaply. She is tanking your stock. Cora, she wants to buy you back." I felt a chill go down my spine. "Grant mentioned papers. He said I needed to come home to sign papers." "There you go," Tessa said. "She is devaluing the asset use so she can take over management. We need a strategy. We are not just going to react. We are going to counter-program." I took a deep breath. "Okay, what do we do?" "We need a team," Tessa said. "I am adding Miles. Hold on." 3 seconds later, Miles Carter joined the call. I had met Miles once at Tessa's birthday party. He was a young, hungry lawyer who specialized in digital defamation and reputation management. He was the kind of guy who read terms of service agreements for fun. "Cora," Miles said, his voice smooth and calm. "Sorry about the digital assassination attempt. I have seen the post. It is nasty. But is it actionable? That depends on what you want." "I want 3 things," I said. I had been formulating this list in my head while Tessa talked. "Goal 1, I need to protect my long-term professional reputation. I have a deal closing, and if this gets back to the investors before the press release, I could look unstable. Goal 2, I need to know exactly why she is doing this. I need to know the endgame. And goal 3, if she crosses a legal line, I want to be able to drop a hammer so heavy she never lifts a phone again." "Understood," Miles said. "First rule, do not post, do not comment, I do not like it, total radio silence." "That is what I have been doing," I said. "Good. Keep doing it," Miles instructed. "Right now, she is telling a story. If you interrupt, she changes the story to, 'My daughter is arguing with me.' If you stay silent, she has to keep adding details to keep the audience interested, and the more she talks, the more likely she is to lie. Liars cannot help themselves. They always over-decorate the cake." "I need you to start archiving everything," Tessa added. "Screenshots are not enough. We need URLs, timestamps, and a list of everyone who shares it. We are building a dossier. Treat this like a heist. Cora, we are casing the joint." I sat down at my desk and cracked my knuckles. "I can do that." I spent the next 2 hours turning my mother's social media footprint into a data set. I didn't look at the hurtful comments as insults. I looked at them as data points. I mapped out who was amplifying the message. It was mostly her church circle and a few of my cousins who always owed her money. But as I was digging, I remembered something. About 2 years ago, I gave Darlene my old iPad. I had bought a new one, and she had complained that her phone screen was too small for her games. I had wiped most of my data. but I had left my Apple ID logged in for the App Store, so she could download things without entering a credit card. I grabbed my current iPad and went into the settings. I looked at the list of devices connected to my account. There it was, Darlene's iPad, last active 6 minutes ago. I couldn't see her texts directly since we had different phone numbers, but because the device was linked to my family cloud for photo sharing, I could see the system logs for the family organizer apps we shared specifically, a shared calendar and a notes app she never used. But then I saw something else. In the shared cloud storage, there was a sync folder for screenshots. Darlene didn't know how to turn off the automatic screenshot upload. I opened the folder. It was mostly recipes and accidental photos of the inside of her purse, but there were 5 recent screenshots, taken yesterday. They were text messages. She had screenshotted a conversation she was having with someone else, presumably to save it or show it to someone. I zoomed in. The contact name at the top was blocked out, but the content was visible. Message 1. Make sure you use the word arrogance. It plays well with the church crowd. Message 2. Don't post it until 4. Wait for the work crowd to get off shift. Message 3. If she calls, don't answer. Let her stew. I screenshotted the screenshots. My heart was pounding. Tessa was right. She wasn't doing this alone. Someone was directing her. Someone was coaching her on the phrasing and the timing. Tessa, I said, my voice tight. She has a handler. I found screenshots of her instructions. Send them to me, Tessa said instantly. Who is it? Can you see the number? No, I said. She cropped the name out. But the tone. It is familiar. It is condescending, but intimate. We will figure it out, Miles said. This is good. Cora, this proves malice. It proves premeditation. If we have to go to court for defamation, this destroys the concerned mother defense. A concerned mother does not take marketing advice on how to ruin her daughter. Just then, an email notification pinged on my laptop. It was from the senior editor at Forbes magazine's Subject Fact Check, Ellington. Larkspire Profile. Dear Ms. Ellington, we are finalizing the copy for the Hidden Architects feature running this Sunday. We just need to verify the spelling of your co-founder status and the final valuation figure for the fact box. Please confirm by 5 o'clock today. I stared at the screen. This was the bomb. This was the nuclear weapon I was waiting to deploy, but I had to handle it like a bomb disposal expert. Miles, I said, the reporter is asking for final confirmation. If I confirm the valuation, and it leaks before Sunday, I breach the NDA with the buyers, but if I don't confirm, they might pull the article. Reply, Miles said, but keep it strictly procedural. Confirm the spelling, confirm the title, for the valuation. Tell them to use the phrase undisclosed 8-figure sum as per the agreement. Do not give them the exact number yet. I typed out the reply. My fingers trembling slightly. Confirmed. Undisclosed 8-figure sum. 8 figures. My mother was posting about me owing credit card debt while I was confirming an 8-figure exit. The absurdity of it made me want to laugh, but it was a dark, jagged laugh that stuck in my throat. I went back to the heist board I was building on my screen. I looked at the photo my mother had posted again. I zoomed in on every pixel. Guys, Miles said, his voice dropping an octave. I am looking at the post again. The second paragraph. Read the third sentence. I switched tabs. She was escorted out of the building after the Red Line audit flagged her accounts. Red Line audit, Miles repeated. Cora, does that mean anything to you? I froze. Red Line was not a generic term. It was not something you would find on Google. It was the internal code name Northline used for our highest-level security compliance checks. It was specific to our floor, our department. Even the janitors didn't know that term. Yes, I whispered. It is internal code. It is the name of the protocol I write software to automate. How does your mother know that word? Miles asked. Did you tell her? Never, I said. I never talk shop with her. She thinks I'm a bank teller, basically. She doesn't know what an audit protocol is. Then you have a leak, Miles said, and the air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Someone inside Northline fed her that detail. Someone who knows the terminology. Someone who wants to make the lie sound credible to people who might actually check. My mind raced. Who at Northline would talk to my mother? I kept my worlds completely separate. I didn't have photos of my family on my desk. I didn't add coworkers on Facebook. Then I looked at the screenshot of the car again, the one taken from the parking lot. The angle. It wasn't taken from the sidewalk. It was taken from the visitor parking row. I pulled up the security camera footage request form I had drafted earlier but hadn't sent. Tessa, I said. Grant, my brother. What about him? He has been asking me for months if Northline was hiring security guards or drivers. He said he needed extra cash. I told him no. I typed furiously, searching the Northline visitor logs, which, as a risk officer, I had read access to. I filtered for yesterday's date. There were 300 visitors, delivery drivers, clients, maintenance. I scrolled down to 3:45 p.m. Visitor name, Grant Ellington. Purpose personal. Drop-off. Signed in by reception. He had been there. He hadn't just driven by. He had signed in. He was there, I said, my voice cold. Grant was at my building yesterday. He must have seen me walk out. He must have taken the photo. But how did he know the word redline? Miles asked. He didn't need to know what it meant. I realized. He just needed to hear someone say it. Or, I remembered the box I was carrying in the photo. It was labeled. I always labeled my archive boxes. I closed my eyes and visualized the box, in black marker. On the side, Project Redline, FY24 Ultra Archive. Grant had seen me. He had zoomed in on the box. He had Googled or guessed, or simply fed the word to my mother to make the lie sound official. It is a two-person job, I said. Grant is the field agent, Mom is in the PR department, and they are sloppy, Tessa said with a vicious delight, because they left fingerprints everywhere. So, I said, looking at the clock, it was almost noon. They want to paint me as a failure who was escorted out for a security breach. They want to trap me into signing over my rights on Sunday. What is the play? Miles asked. I looked at the timeline. I looked at the visitor log. I looked at the lie that was spreading through my hometown like a virus. The play is silent, I said. We let them think they are winning. We let them think I am cowering in my apartment, ashamed and broken. I will go to dinner on Sunday. I will let them serve me up on a platter. And then, Tessa asked. And then, I said, I am going to burn the table down. I picked up my phone and saw a new notification from Darlene. She had tagged me in a memory from 5 years ago, a photo of me looking tired at a family barbecue, with the caption, "She has always struggled so much. We just want to help her carry the load." I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt surgical. Miles, I said, draft a cease and desist letter, but don't send it yet. Bring it to dinner. I want to hand it to her after the dessert. With pleasure, Miles said. I hung up the call. The heist was on. They thought they were robbing me of my dignity. They didn't realize they were breaking into a vault that was already empty, while the real treasure was being loaded onto a truck they couldn't even see. I looked at the calendar. 48 hours until Sunday. I had work to do. Saturday morning felt less like a weekend and more like the calm before a tactical strike. I dressed not in my usual comfortable weekend wear, but in a sharp blazer and tailored trousers. I needed to feel armored. My destination was my own office building, a place where the internet believed I was no longer welcome, but where my keycard still worked with a satisfying green light beep. I bypassed the main bullpen and went straight to the 4th floor, to the office of Sarah Jenkins, the head of human resources for Northline Risk and Compliance. I had texted her late last night, requesting an urgent, off-the-record meeting. Sarah was a woman who lived by the book, and I counted on that bureaucratic rigidity to save me. When I walked in, Sarah looked up from her coffee, her expression a mix of confusion and professional caution. "Cora," she said, gesturing to the chair opposite her desk. "I saw your message. You said this was time-sensitive." It is, I said, sitting down and placing my phone on the desk. Screen down. I need a favor. Sarah, I need an official letter of employment verification, dated today. I need it to state explicitly that I'm currently employed, in good standing, and that my exit from the building on Friday afternoon was for a scheduled off-site secure transport, not a termination. Sarah blinked. Okay, that is standard enough, but can I ask why you usually just download the automated proof of income for loans? It is a personal legal matter, I said, keeping my voice even. There has been some misinformation circulated regarding my status here. I need to nip it in the bud before Monday. Sarah typed a few things into her keyboard, her brow furrowing. Then she stopped and looked at me, a strange realization dawning in her eyes. Wait, she said slowly. Does this have anything to do with a phone call we received yesterday? My stomach dropped about 3 inches. What phone call? Sarah leaned back, tapping a pen against her lip. We got a call on the general HR line yesterday around 3:30. It was a woman. She did not give her name, but she sounded distressed. She asked to speak to a manager. She wanted to know if Cora Ellington had been escorted out yet. She kept saying she was a concerned relative and wanted to make sure you had a ride home because you were, quote, too unstable to drive after the bad news. My hands clenched into fists on my lap. The time, 3:30, 30 minutes before I actually left the building. 30 minutes before the photo was taken. What did you tell her? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. We told her nothing, Sarah said firmly. Company policy. We do not discuss employee status. But she was persistent. She said, I know she is being let go for the security breach. I just want to be there for her. It was weird. Cora, she sounded almost eager. Was that your mother? I closed my eyes for a second. It might have been. Thank you for not engaging. Sarah. I did not engage, Sarah said, hitting the print button on her keyboard. The whir of the printer filled the silence. But it spooked the receptionist. The woman knew the phrase, security breach. We thought maybe there was a leak. There is no leak, I said, standing up as she handed me the document with the fresh Northline seal. Just a family member with a very vivid imagination and a very cruel agenda. I took the letter. It was a shield. But as I walked back to the elevator, I realized it was also a piece of a puzzle I hadn't fully assembled yet. My mother hadn't just reacted to seeing me with a box. She had called ahead. She had tried to plant the seed of instability with my employer before she even snapped the picture. She was trying to manifest my firing into existence. Back in my car, I called Tessa. I got the letter, I said, and I got confirmation. Someone called HR 30 minutes before the photo was taken. They were fishing for information. It gets worse, Tessa said. Her voice was all business. The tone she used when she was managing a PR crisis for a senator. I have been analyzing the photo metadata and the angle. Cora, I pulled up the street view of your office building. That photo wasn't taken from the sidewalk. The angle is too high. It was taken from inside a vehicle. A drive-by, I asked. No, Tessa corrected. A stakeout. Look at the framing. There is no motion blur. The focus is sharp. Whoever took this was parked, engine likely off, waiting, and based on the shadow of the side mirror visible in the bottom left corner, they were parked in the visitor lot. Row B. That row has a direct line of sight to the main glass doors. I looked at the dashboard of my car. They waited for me. They didn't just stumble upon me. Exactly, Tessa said. Do you have access to the building security feeds? You are a risk officer, right? I can request them, I said. I know the head of physical security. He owes me a favor for fixing a compliance issue last year. 20 minutes later. I was sitting in a coffee shop across from my building, my laptop open, connected to the Northline secure portal. I had sent a priority request to Jim in security, claiming I needed to review a potential tailgating incident from Friday afternoon. Jim, bless his heart, didn't ask questions. He just sent me the raw footage for the front lot between 3 and 5. I scrubbed through the timeline. At 3:15, A silver sedan pulled into the visitor lot. It didn't park in a normal spot. It backed into a space in row B. Facing the exit, the driver didn't get out. I zoomed in. The resolution was grainy, but the car was unmistakable. It was a 10-year-old silver Honda Civic with a distinctive dent on the rear bumper and a Buckeye sticker in the back window. My breath hitched. I knew that car. I had helped pay for the transmission repair on that car 2 years ago. It was Grant's car. I watched the screen, feeling a cold numbness spreading through my limbs. Grant sat there for 45 minutes. At 4 o'clock, when I walked out the doors with my box, the driver's side window rolled down. A hand came out holding a phone. Snap. The window rolled up. The car waited another 30 seconds, then pulled out and drove away. Grant, my brother, who I had protected from bullies in elementary school. My brother, who I had secretly sent money to when he was short on rent. He hadn't just been a bystander. He was the cameraman. He was the sniper. My phone vibrated. It was a text from Grant, replying to the message I had sent him earlier asking where he was yesterday. Grant, told you. I was just chilling at home all day. Gaming. Why are you so paranoid? Just come home tomorrow. Liar. I switched apps and opened Instagram. I went to his profile. He hadn't posted anything on his main feed, but I checked his tagged photos. Nothing. Then I checked his stories. He had posted a story 20 hours ago. It was just a picture of a half-eaten burger and fries with the caption, Friday Feasts. It looked generic. But I tapped the location tag he had been stupid enough to leave on. Joe's Burger Shack. I Googled Joe's Burger Shack. There was only one location in the state. It was 3 blocks from my office building. I screenshot the story. I screenshot the map. I screenshot the security footage of his car. He is in on it, I whispered to myself. He isn't just listening to Mom. He is working for her. But why Grant was lazy? Sure, he was entitled. But this required effort. Driving 2 hours to the city, waiting in a parking lot, lying to my face that was work. Grant didn't do work unless there was a payout. Then Miles called. Cora, Miles said, and his voice lacked its usual smooth, lawyerly detachment. He sounded urgent. Check your secure email. I just forwarded you something. What is it? I asked, switching tabs on my laptop. I have a contact in the clerk of court's office in your hometown, Miles said. And I also have a very chatty paralegal friend who works for the only estate lawyer in Briarwood. Word travels fast in small towns. I opened the email. It was a PDF of a draft document, affidavit of financial incompetency, and request for emergency trusteeship. I scanned the legalese. My eyes caught my own name. Then my mother's name. Then the phrase, history of mental instability and erratic financial behavior. What is this, Miles? I asked, feeling the blood drain from my face. It is a draft, Miles explained. It looks like your mother is trying to get ahead of a trust distribution. Does your family have trust? Anything with your name on it? I paused, thinking. My grandmother. She died 3 years ago. She left a small rental property, a duplex on the edge of town, but the will was complicated. It was supposed to go into a trust until I turned 30, or until... I stopped. Until what? Miles pressed. Until the executor deemed the beneficiary me financially stable enough to manage it. I finished. Or, if the beneficiary was deemed incapacitated or financially reckless, the control would revert to the secondary trustee. Let me guess, Miles said dryly. The secondary trustee is Darlene Ellington. Yes, I said. And Grant is living in one of the units rent-free. If I take ownership, I would probably sell it or make him pay rent. The pieces slammed together so hard it almost gave me a headache. This wasn't about a Facebook post. This wasn't about Darlene being a narcissist who needed attention. This was a heist. They knew the trust review was coming up. I turned 30 next month. If I showed up with a successful job, a stable life, and God forbid a multi-million-dollar exit from my own company, I would get the property immediately. I would have the power. I could evict Grant. I could cut off Darlene's access to the rental income from the other unit, which I suspected she had been skimming for years. So they had to destroy me. They had to create a paper trail of failure. They needed witnesses. They needed a Facebook timeline full of "poor Cora lost her job" and "Cora is having a breakdown." They needed HR at Northline to confirm I was escorted out. They were manufacturing a reality where I was too crazy and too broke to handle a duplex in Ohio, so that Darlene could step in and save the asset and keep the money flowing to herself and her golden boy. "It is a setup," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "They are trying to gaslight a probate judge." "Exactly," Miles said. "And that letter she is trying to get relatives to sign, the one Grant mentioned. It is probably a character witness statement to support this affidavit. They want to walk into court and say, 'Look, even her whole family agrees she can't handle money.'" I looked at the screen, the draft affidavit, the security footage of Grant's car, the lies in the text messages. It was brilliant, in a sick, twisted way. If I hadn't been selling my company, if I had just been a regular employee, this might have worked. I might have cracked. I might have screamed at them, which they would have recorded and used as proof of my instability. But they made one fatal mistake. They assumed I was the same Cora who left town at 18 with a backpack and a grudge. They didn't know they were picking a fight with a woman who analyzed fraud schemes for a living. "Miles," I said, and my voice was deadly calm, "I am going to that dinner tomorrow, and I want you to bring the draft of this affidavit with you. But don't serve it yet." "What is the plan?" Miles asked. "They want to prove I am incompetent." I said, "I am going to let them put it on the record. I am going to let them say it to my face, in front of witnesses, on video. I want them to commit to the lie so completely that when the truth comes out, it doesn't just debunk them, it shows them." I closed my laptop. The feeling of betrayal was gone, replaced by the cold, metallic taste of strategy. They weren't my family anymore. They were hostile actors in a high-stakes negotiation, and they had just walked into a room where I held all the leverage. "Grant," I said to the empty car, looking at his burger photo one last time, "enjoy your meal. It is going to be the most expensive burger you ever ate." If Saturday morning was the setup, Saturday afternoon was the scorched earth campaign. I was sitting in my apartment, staring at my laptop, watching the engagement numbers on my mother's Facebook page climb with a speed that would have made a marketing executive jealous. Darlene Ellington had decided that one post was not enough. She needed a sequel. At 2:00 in the afternoon, she posted part 2 of the Cora Ellington failure saga. The headline she chose was visceral. I tried to save her from herself. But debt is a heavy chain. The text below it was a work of fiction so elaborate it almost impressed me. She wrote, "It hurts a mother to see her child living a lie. For years, Cora has posted photos of a fancy city life dinners, clothes, trips. We thought she was doing well. Now we know the truth. It was all credit cards and loans. She was borrowing money to look rich while I was scraping by to send her care packages. Now the collectors are calling. The job is gone, and she has nowhere to turn. I am sharing this not to shame her, but to warn other young people. Do not live for the likes. It ends in ruin." Below the text, she had attached a photo. It was a picture of me from 3 years ago, standing next to a rental car, a convertible I had rented for a weekend trip with Tessa. My mother had cropped the photo so it looked like I was posing with a car I claimed to own. The comment section was a bloodbath. My cousin Becky, who I knew for a fact was currently being sued by a homeowners association for unpaid dues, wrote, "I always knew she was faking it. Nobody makes that kind of money at her age without doing something shady. So glad you are strong enough to speak the truth." Aunt Darlene. My great-aunt Linda added, "Pride goeth before destruction." I remember when she wouldn't take that waitressing job in high school because she thought she was too good for it. Now look at her. I felt a physical blow to my chest reading that. I had not taken the waitressing job because I was already working 2 other jobs and studying for the SATs until 2 in the morning. But in the Darlene cinematic universe, I was just lazy and entitled. But then, the containment wall breached. My phone buzzed with a message from LinkedIn. It was not a recruiter. It was not a spam bot. It was David Klein, a former client from a mid-sized bank I had audited last year. I froze. David Klein. "Hey Cora. Hope you are good. I saw a weird post shared by a mutual connection on Facebook. Something about you leaving Northline. I know we were talking about you consulting on our Q4 risk assessment. Just wanted to check if you are still taking on freelance work, or if things are complicated right now. Let me know if you need anything. My stomach turned to ice. Complicated. That was corporate speak for radioactive. David didn't mean any harm. He was trying to be nice, but he had seen the post. A mutual connection, likely someone from my high school, who had somehow ended up in his professional network, had shared Darlene's poison, and now it was bleeding into my real life. If David saw it, who else saw it? Did the investors see it? Did the acquisitions team at the conglomerate buying Larkspire see it? Due diligence was mostly done, but a character concern could pause the deal. If they thought I was drowning in secret debt or prone to public meltdowns, they could pull the offer. I called Tessa. My hands were shaking. "It is leaking," I said the moment she answered. "Clients are seeing it. Darlene is painting me as a fraudster who lives on credit. If the investors see this, they might trigger a deeper audit into my personal finances. They will see the weird transfers regarding the trust property. They might think I am laundering money or hiding liabilities." "Okay, breathe," Tessa commanded. "We knew this might happen. Silence is powerful. Cora. But silence has a shelf life. If you stay quiet while she accuses you of financial fraud, your silence looks like an admission of guilt." "So I fight back," I asked. "Do I post the bank statements? Do I post the Northline letter?" "No," Tessa said sharply. "If you post a bank statement, you look defensive. You look like you are arguing with a crazy person in the street. You never win an argument with a crazy person in the street because the bystanders just see two crazy people. Then what do? I demanded. "She is killing me, Tessa, systematically." "We have a nuclear option on the legal front," Tessa said. "But private nuclear, Miles is ready. We send a cease and desist, not a friendly please stop text, a formal, terrifying legal document on firm letterhead. We serve it to her via email and text immediately. We demand she take down the posts under threat of a defamation lawsuit." "She is my mother," I said, the old programming kicking in for a split second. "Suing her?" "She is not acting like your mother right now," Tessa cut in. "She is acting like a hostile entity attacking your livelihood. Do you want to save the deal, or do you want to spare her feelings?" "Send it," I said. "Send it now." 30 minutes later, Miles sent the document. It was a masterpiece of legal aggression. It outlined the specific lies: the firing, the debt, the escorted out narrative. It demanded an immediate retraction and deletion of all posts. It cited the specific statutes regarding libel and tortious interference with business relations. I sat back and waited. I thought this would scare her. My mother was a bully, and bullies usually crumbled when a lawyer showed up. I thought she would delete the posts, call me screaming, and then play the victim privately. I was wrong. I had underestimated how desperate she was to get that trust fund. At 4:45, my phone blew up. Darlene didn't delete the posts. She screenshot the cease and desist letter. She posted the screenshot of the legal threat to her Facebook wall. The caption read, "I am shaking right now. I try to help my daughter. I try to pray for her, and this is what I get. My own daughter, the child I raised and sacrificed everything for, is threatening to sue me. She hired a fancy city lawyer to bully her own mother into silence. This is what money or the lack of it does to people. Please pray for me. I am heartbroken." It was a masterstroke of manipulation. The comments section didn't just explode. It went nuclear. How dare she suing her own mother? That is the lowest of the low. She has lost her soul. Darlene, you don't deserve this. She is clearly unstable. I stared at the screen, feeling the air leave the room. She had turned my shield into a sword and stabbed me with it. By trying to stop the lies legally, I had just proven her point that I was erratic and cruel. "She is good," Miles said on the conference line, sounding genuinely disturbed. "I have sued corporations with less strategic acumen than your mother. She just inoculated herself against legal threats. Now, if we actually sue her, we look like monsters." "She wants a war," I said, my voice hollow. She doesn't care if I hate her. She just needs the narrative to hold until Sunday. Why Sunday? Tessa asked. We know about the Forbes article, but why is she rushing? Because she needs me to sign that affidavit. I realized. She needs me broken by tomorrow night. Then, a lifeline appeared from the unlikeliest place. My phone pinged with an audio file sent via WhatsApp. It was from a number I didn't recognize. Below the file was a text. I am at the hall. They don't know I am recording. You need to hear this. Please don't tell them it was me. Cousin Amy. Amy. She was 19, a college student who I had helped with her application essays a year ago. She was quiet, observant, and apparently the only person in my family with a conscience. I got a recording, I told Miles and Tessa. Grant organized a prayer night at the community center. Cousin Amy is there. I clicked play. The audio was tinny and echoed, typical of a phone recording in a large room. I could hear the murmur of voices, the clinking of coffee cups. Then, Grant's voice cut through, loud and clear. Look, nobody wants to see Cora get hurt, Grant was saying. But we all know she is not in her right mind. That letter she sent Mom, that is not a sane person acting. That is someone having a mental break. A chorus of murmurs agreed. Then my mother's voice. She sounded calm, controlled, completely different from the hysterical victim she played online. I spoke to Judge Henderson's clerk, Darlene said. If we can get the family consensus, and if Cora signs the voluntary trusteeship tomorrow, we can seal the record. We can make sure none of this debt stuff follows her permanently. But will she sign? Aunt Marcia asked. She is stubborn, Darlene. She will sign, Grant said, and I could hear the sneer in his voice. Because we are going to offer her a deal. She signs the paper giving Mom control of the rental property and the trust, and we delete the Facebook posts. We tell everyone it was a misunderstanding. That she got a new job? Whatever. We rehabilitate her image. My blood ran cold. And if she doesn't sign, another voice asked. Then the posts stay up, Darlene said. Her voice was nice. And I released the medical records I found in her room from high school. We let everyone verify just how long she has been. Troubled, by Monday. She won't be able to get a job as a cashier, let alone in finance. It is for her own good, Grant added quickly. We need to control the assets so she doesn't blow them. She is desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. We are saving her. The recording ended. I sat there in silence for a full minute. Did you hear that? I whispered. I heard it, Miles said, and I could hear the furious typing of his keyboard. That is not defamation anymore, Cora. That is extortion. That is blackmail. Sign this asset transfer or we destroy your reputation. They are holding my life hostage, I said. They think they can trade my dignity for a duplex. They just gave you the smoking gun, Tessa said, her voice trembling with adrenaline. They admitted it was a transaction. They admitted the posts are leverage, and they admitted they are targeting your employability. I looked at the phone. Cousin Amy had saved me. I realized then that Darlene had made a critical error. She thought she was playing to an audience of sheep. She forgot that even in a flock of sheep, there are eyes that see the wolf. Do not release this audio, I told Miles. Not yet. You are kidding, Miles said. This ends it right now. We post this, and she is done. No, I said, standing up. If we post this now, she deletes everything and claims it was a deepfake. She claims she was taken out of context. She spins it. I walked to the window and looked out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, the Forbes servers were catching the article that would change my life. I need them to say it to my face, I said. I need them to put the contract on the table. I need them to make the threat directly. While I am standing there. You are going into the lion's den, Tessa warned. I am, I said, but I am not bringing a whip. I am bringing a mirror. And I am going to make them look at themselves while the whole world watches. I texted Cousin Amy back. Thank you. You just saved my life. Delete this chat. Then I looked at the screenshot of the legal letter on my mother's wall. The comments were still pouring in, calling me a monster. Let them hate me. Let them think I was the villain. Every insult they typed was just adding weight to the hammer I was about to drop. "Grant," I said to the empty room, "you want to play Let's Make a Deal? Okay, I accept your invitation." Sunday was going to be biblical. If Saturday morning was about shock, Saturday night was about forensics. I sat at my dining table, which had been transformed into a command center. On my left was Miles, typing furiously on his laptop. On the screen in front of me was Tessa, video-conferenced in from her office in Chicago, and in the center of the table lay the printed wreckage of my reputation. We were not just looking at Facebook posts anymore. We were building a litigation file. Miles called it the damages matrix. It was a cold, unfeeling spreadsheet where every emotional wound my mother had inflicted was converted into a $sign or a legal liability. Item 1. The post claiming I was fired for a security breach. Legal classification, defamation per se, damages, potential loss of income, damage to professional standing in a regulated industry. Item 2. The comments from Grant claiming I had stolen money from family accounts. Legal classification, libel, damages, character assassination, attribution of criminal conduct without evidence. Item 3. The unauthorized use of my image to promote a false narrative for financial gain specifically, the gain of the trusteeship they were seeking. Legal classification, right of publicity violation and fraud. "We need to be surgical," Miles said, his fingers flying across the keys. "We are not throwing spaghetti at the wall. We are building a sniper rifle. Every claim needs a timestamp and a witness. Tessa, have you archived the shares?" "Done," Tessa said, her voice tinny through the speakers. "I have logged 47 shares. I have identified 3 people who work in local real estate and banking who shared it. That proves the lie has reached professional circles. That is our demonstrable harm." I looked at the spreadsheet. It was satisfying in a dark way. My mother thought she was painting a masterpiece of drama. She did not realize she was painting a confession. While Miles built the offense, I focused on the defense. I could not let this poison seep into Northline. The letter from HR was a good start, but I needed to inoculate the entire leadership chain. I drafted a formal memorandum to the General Counsel of Northline Risk and Compliance. I kept it brief, emotionless, and professional. Subject notification of external harassment campaign to the Office of the General Counsel. I am writing to formally notify Northline that I am currently the target of a coordinated harassment campaign involving family members attempting to leverage false claims about my employment status for a private civil dispute. You may receive inquiries or false reports regarding my standing at the firm. These claims are demonstrable falsehoods. I have retained legal counsel and am taking steps to address this. I am providing this notice so the firm is not manipulated by third-party actors. I hit send. It felt like locking the blast doors on a spaceship. Let Darlene call them again. Let her try to spin her stories to the legal department. She would find herself talking to a wall of corporate iron. "Okay," Tessa said, shifting the tone. "Defense is set. Now let us talk about the counterstrike, the Forbes piece." She shared her screen. It was a PDF proof of the article scheduled for tomorrow night. My breath caught in my throat. The headline was bold. "The Silent Architect, How Cora Ellington Built Larkspire in the Shadows." But it was the sidebar that made my heart race. It listed the key stats. Role co-founder and chief technology officer, year-over-year growth, 300%. Projected exit valuation undisclosed, 8-figure sum. 8 figures, Tessa said softly. "When your mother sees this, her brain is going to short-circuit. She is painting you as a destitute charity case. This article describes you as a titan of industry." "It is going to destroy them," I said, feeling a strange mix of pride and dread. "But we have to time it right. If we drop this too early, they cancel the party. They go to ground. I need them exposed." "We stick to the plan," Miles agreed. "The article drops at 8 o'clock. You will be at the dinner. You keep them talking until the notification hits. But there was still a missing piece, the why. I knew they wanted the trusteeship of my grandmother's duplex. I knew they wanted the rental income, but the desperation felt disproportionate. Darlene was greedy, yes, but she was usually risk-averse. Risking a defamation lawsuit for a few $1,000s a month in rent seemed extreme, even for her. Miles, I said, pulling up a new document. I need you to look at something. I am logging into the county clerk's public records portal. I searched for the property address, 42 Oak Street, Briarwood, Ohio. The deeds came up. My grandmother, Evelyn, was listed as the owner. Then, upon her death 3 years ago, the title transferred to the Ellington Family Trust. I clicked on the trust documents. There was a filing from 2 years ago, a temporary management authority form. I squinted at the screen. Miles, look at this. The document authorized a designated agent to collect rents and manage maintenance while the primary beneficiary me was unavailable due to out-of-state residency. At the bottom of the page were 2 signatures. One was Darlene Ellington, acting as trustee. The other was Cora Ellington, consenting to the arrangement. I stared at my own name. The loops of the C were wide and sweeping. The slant was perfect. It looked exactly like my signature. I never signed that, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. I have never seen this document in my life. Miles leaned in, his eyes narrowing. Are you sure maybe you signed a stack of papers at the funeral? No, I said firmly. I remember the funeral. I signed the guest book. I signed a thank you note to the pastor. I did not sign a legal document transferring management rights. I zoomed in further. Look at the ink pressure. It is uniform. And look at the date. August 12th, 2 years ago. I pulled up my work calendar from 2 years ago. August 12th. I read. I was in London. I was on a 2-week secondment for Northline, auditing a British subsidiary. I have the passport stamps to prove it. I was 4,000 miles away when I supposedly signed this paper in Ohio. It is a forgery, Miles said, the lawyer in him waking up fully. And a good one. They probably traced it from an old birthday card or a school document. But why? I asked. Why forge a management agreement? Why not just ask me? I would have let them manage it. I did not care about the rent money back then. I scrolled down to the next page. The designated agent listed was not Darlene. It was Grant Ellington. My stomach turned. Grant, my brother, who claimed he was gaming all day. My brother, who drove a 10-year-old car but somehow always had the newest console and designer sneakers. Grant is the property manager, I realized. He is the one collecting the rent. I quickly did the math. The duplex had 2 units. The market rate in Briarwood was about $1,200 a month per unit. That was $2,400 a month, nearly $30,000 a year. He has been living off the rent, I said. He is not just gaming. He is unemployed. The duplex is his salary, and Darlene knows it. And if you take over the trust next month when you turn 30, Miles finished the thought, you will audit the books. You will see that the money isn't in the trust account. You will see that Grant spent it. They are not just protecting the future income, I said, feeling sick. They are covering up past embezzlement. If I take the property, Grant goes to jail, or at least, he faces civil liability for 3 years of stolen rent. That was it. That was the engine driving this entire machine. Darlene wasn't just being mean. She was covering for her golden child's crimes. She needed me declared incompetent not just to keep the money flowing, but to prevent me from having the legal standing to sue Grant for the money he had already stolen. If I was unstable, Darlene remained the trustee. She could bury the records. She could say the money was used for maintenance that never happened. She could save him. This is not a family dispute, I said, standing up and walking to the window. This is a RICO case in the suburbs. What do you want to do? Miles asked. We can file a police report right now. Forgery is a felony. No, I said. Not yet. If I call the police now, Darlene will claim it was a misunderstanding, or that I gave verbal permission and she just helped with the paperwork. She will muddy the waters. I turned back to them. I need the notary. The notary? Miles asked. Every legal document has to be notarized, I said. Look at the stamp next to the forgery. Linda P. Stevens, Notary Public. I knew Linda. She was a nice lady who worked at the bank downtown. She was also a stickler for rules. If Linda stamped this, I said, she has a logbook, a journal. She has to record who appeared before her, check their ID, and have them sign the book. If I was in London, I could not have signed her book. So either someone impersonated you with a fake ID, Miles said, or Linda is in on it. Or, I said, Grant or Mom went to her, told her a sob story about how I was busy in the city, and convinced her to stamp it as a favor without me being there. That is a crime for her, too. I will draft a formal demand for inspection of the notary journal, Miles said. We will have a process server ready to drop it on Linda's desk Monday morning. But for tomorrow. For tomorrow, I said. I have everything I need. I looked at the forgery on the screen. It was the final nail. They had stolen my name twice, once to steal money, and now to steal my reputation. They want me to sign a new affidavit tomorrow, I said. They want me to sign away my rights. They are probably going to put a pen in my hand and tell me it is for my own good. And you are going to let them, Tessa asked. I'm going to let them put the paper on the table, I said. I am going to let them make the threat. I want them to think they have won. I want Grant to smirk. I want Darlene to do her fake cry. I picked up my phone. I opened the group chat with Darlene and Grant. I typed, I will be there tomorrow. I am ready to listen. It was the truth. I was ready to listen. I was ready to listen to them incriminate themselves into a corner they could never escape. Miles, I said, pack your best suit. You are driving me to Briarwood tomorrow, but you are waiting in the car until I give the signal. What is the signal? Miles asked. When the clock strikes 8, I said, or when they try to make me sign, whichever comes first. I looked at the photo of me walking out of my office one last time. The girl in that photo looked defeated, but she wasn't. She was carrying a box of evidence. Tomorrow, I was going to unpack it. Let's get some sleep, I said, though I knew I wouldn't sleep a wink. Tomorrow is a big day for the Ellington family. We are finally going to have an honest conversation. I closed the laptop. The screen went black, but my reflection stared back at me. I didn't look like a victim anymore. I looked like the CEO of a company that had just identified a critical vulnerability and was about to patch it permanently. Maple Ridge Hall was a building that smelled permanently of floor wax and stale popcorn. It was the place where Briarwood held its Rotary Club meetings, its wedding receptions, and apparently, its public shaming rituals masquerading as interventions. I arrived at 5 minutes past 6. I had made Miles park the rental car a block away, behind the drugstore, so no one would see the sleek, black sedan that screamed billable hours. I wanted to walk in alone. I wanted to look exactly like the stray cat they believed was dragging itself back to the doorstep. When I pushed open the double doors, the first thing I saw was the banner. It was strung across the stage where the local high school jazz band usually played. It was painted on a long sheet of butcher paper in cheerful, bubbly letters, Welcome Home. Cora, a new beginning. It looked like a banner for a soldier returning from war, or perhaps a parolee getting out of prison. It was patronizing, infantile, and designed to humiliate. The room went quiet. There were about 30 people there, a mix of immediate family, extended cousins, and the core members of my mother's church group. They were holding paper plates loaded with potato salad and fried chicken. When they saw me, the chewing stopped. I stood in the doorway. I was wearing a charcoal gray dress that fell to my knees, simple black heels, and no jewelry. I had pulled my hair back into a severe, low bun. To them, I probably looked austere, perhaps humbled. To anyone in my industry, I looked like I was about to walk into a boardroom and fire a CEO. Darlene was the first to move. She rushed toward me, arms outstretched, wearing a floral dress that I recognized from the Easter service 3 years ago. Her eyes were wet. She was already in character. "Cora!" she cried out, her voice pitching up so everyone could hear. "Oh, thank God you are here. I was so worried you would be too ashamed to show your face. She wrapped me in a hug that felt more like a frisk. She was checking for tension. She was checking for weakness. I did not hug her back, but I did not push her away. I simply stood there, stiff as a board, until she pulled back and held my face in her hands. "You look thin," she said, loud enough for Aunt Marcia to hear in the back row. "But we will fix that. You are home now. No more skipping meals to pay rent." I smiled. It was a small, tight smile. "I am fine, Mother. The banner is a lot." "We wanted you to feel supported," Grant said. Stepping up behind her, he was wearing a polo shirt that was tucked in too tight and a pair of khakis. He held a plastic cup of punch in one hand and looked at me with a smugness that made my skin crawl. This was the man who had stalked me in a parking lot. This was the man who was living off my money. "You should be thanking Mom," Grant said, his voice dripping with false piety. "Most parents would have let you hit rock bottom on the street. She is giving you a soft landing. You need to show some gratitude." "Cora, I am very grateful," I said, my voice steady. "I am here, aren't I?" I wanted to hear what everyone had to say. I walked past them, further into the room. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, but instead of awe, I felt their pity washing over me. It was thick and suffocating. "Good to see you, Cora," Uncle Ralph mumbled, clutching a beer. "Tough break in the city. Huh, I always said that place was a bubble waiting to burst." "It is certainly a different world," I said vaguely. "So, is it true?" Cousin Becky asked, leaning in with a malicious gleam in her eyes. "Did they really escort you out with security? I heard you tried to take company property." I looked at Becky. I remembered helping her with her math homework in 6th grade. Now she was looking at me like I was a criminal. "I cannot really talk about the details of my departure," I said, choosing my words with legal precision. "I am currently in a sensitive transition phase with several parties. There are agreements in place." A ripple went through the room. They heard sensitive transition and agreements and translated it immediately into severance package negotiations or police investigation. "Oh, honey," Aunt Marcia sighed, patting my arm. "It is okay. You do not have to spin it for us. We know you are in trouble. That is why we are here." "We are here to pray for clarity," the pastor's wife added, nodding solemnly, "and to help you get organized." "Organized," I repeated. "Is that what we are calling it?" Darlene steered me toward a large round table near the front. It was set up like a tribunal. There was a plate of cold food waiting for me, but more importantly, there was a manila folder sitting next to the fork. I sat down. Darlene sat on my right. Grant sat on my left. They boxed me in. "Eat something," Darlene said. "You need your strength." I took a sip of water. "I am not hungry." "Suit yourself," Grant said. He reached for the manila folder and tapped it with his index finger. "Look, Cora, let us cut to the chase. We know you are drowning. Mom showed us the messages about the debt. We know about the rental car thing." He was lying so effortlessly. "And," Grant continued, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper, "we know you are not in a position to handle the complexities of Grandma's estate next month. You are barely keeping your head above water." "So," Darlene interrupted, placing her hand over mine. Her palm was damp. "We drafted a solution. It is a temporary trusteeship, just until you get back on your feet. Maybe 5 years, maybe 10, just until you are stable." She opened the folder. Inside was the document Miles had found online, or at least a version of it. Voluntary relinquishment of financial authority. It was a power of attorney so broad it would have allowed her to sell my kidney if she deemed it a financial necessity. "You want me to sign this?" I said, looking down at the paper. "Tonight?" "Why wait?" Aunt Marcia called out from the next table. "The sooner you sign, the sooner Darlene can talk to your creditors. She can stop the bleeding. Cora." "Kicking the can down the road won't help," Uncle Ralph added. "Be a big girl. Admit you need help." I looked at the document. I flipped to the second page. I saw the clause about the rental property. It explicitly granted Grant Ellington full operational control and residency rights, in exchange for property management services. It was a theft contract. "I would like to read it," I said quietly. Grant laughed. It was a sharp, barking sound. "Read it, Cora. Come on. It is a standard legal boilerplate. You are not going to understand half of it. You are a risk analyst, not a lawyer. And honestly, considering you just got fired for incompetence, maybe your reading comprehension isn't the best right now." "Grant," Darlene scolded gently, but she was smiling. "Don't be mean, but he is right. Cora, it is just legal talk. It just says Mom loves you and wants to take care of the bills. Just sign it. Look, I even brought a pen." She produced a heavy, expensive-looking pen. It was probably a gift I had given her for Christmas 3 years ago. I picked up the pen. I felt the weight of it in my hand. My phone buzzed in my clutch purse. One vibration. I glanced down. It was 7:55 p.m. "Tessa, the link is live on the back end. The embargo lifts in 5 minutes. 8:00 p.m. sharp. Are they gathered?" 5 minutes. I looked at the banner. Welcome home. I looked at the paper. I looked at the faces around me. They were all watching, hungry for the moment of surrender. They wanted to see the arrogant Cora Ellington bend the knee. They wanted the satisfaction of knowing that the one person who left town had failed. It validated their choices to stay. It made them feel safe. If I signed this, they would be happy. They would pat my back. They would buy me a drink. They would love me, as long as I remained beneath them. "You know," I said, my voice gaining a little more volume, "this is a really big moment. A family coming together like this." "It is," Darlene said, her eyes shining. "It is a miracle." "I feel like we should document this," I said. I looked over at Cousin Becky, who had her phone out, likely texting her friends about how pathetic I looked. "Becky, can you record this? I want to remember exactly what Mom and Grant are doing for me right now." Darlene preened. She loved a camera. "Oh, that is a sweet idea. Yes, Becky, film this. We can show the pastor later." Grant straightened his collar. He looked like he was accepting an award. "Sure, go ahead." Becky stood up and held up her phone. The red recording light blinked on. "Okay," I said, addressing the camera, then turning to my mother. "So, just so I understand, Mom, you are asking me to sign over control of my grandmother's trust and the rental property because you believe I am financially incompetent." "We don't like that word," Darlene said, smiling benevolently for the lens. "We prefer financially overwhelmed. We are doing this to save you, Cora, because you have no job and no money. And Grant," I turned to him, "you are going to manage the property. You are going to handle the funds because you are the responsible one." "Someone has to do it," Grant said, puffing out his chest. "I have been helping Mom with it for years. I know the accounts better than anyone." "You have been helping her for years," I repeated, making sure the microphone picked it up. "So you are aware of where the rent money has gone for the last 2 years?" "Of course," Grant said, his eyes flicking momentarily to the side. "Maintenance, taxes, it is all accounted for. Just sign the paper. Cora, stop stalling." "I just want to be sure," I said, holding the pen over the paper. "You are saying that I have failed, that I am broke, and that this is the only way to protect the family assets." "Yes," Aunt Marcia yelled. "Sign it, child." "It is the only choice you have," Darlene said softly. "You have nothing else, Cora. No one out there cares about you. Only we do." I looked at my watch. 7:59 p.m. I looked at the phone in Becky's hand. "You are right," I said. "I should sign something, but I think there has been a slight misunderstanding about what exactly I have been doing for the last 4 years." "Here we go," Grant groaned. "More lies." "Not lies," I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out my own phone. "Actually, I think the best way to explain it is to show you." "Show us what?" Darlene asked, her smile faltering slightly. "Becky," I said, "keep recording, but maybe point the camera at the wall for a second. I'm going to cast something on TV." The hall had a large smart TV mounted on the wall behind Darlene, usually used for church announcements or slideshows of mission trips. It was currently displaying a screensaver of floating bubbles. I tapped my screen. I connected to the Maple Ridge guest display. "What are you doing?" Grant stood up. "Stop playing games. It is 8 o'clock, I said. On the screen, the bubbles disappeared. A browser window opened. It was the homepage of Forbes magazine, one of the most respected financial publications in the country, and there, taking up the entire top banner, was a face they all knew. It was me. But it was not the grainy, sad photo Darlene had posted. It was a high-resolution, black and white studio portrait. I was wearing a white suit, arms crossed, looking directly into the lens with a gaze of absolute iron. The headline was in bold. 70-point font, "The Billion-Dollar Algorithm, How Cora Ellington Rewrote the Rules of Risk." The room went silent. I mean, the graveyard is silent. The kind of silence where you can hear a plastic fork hit a paper plate. "What is that?" Darlene whispered. Her voice was trembling. "That," I said, pointing to the screen, "is the press release for the acquisition of Larkspire Systems, my company." I scrolled down with my phone. The text on the giant screen moved. Cora Ellington, co-founder and CTO, has agreed to sell her proprietary fraud detection platform to Tillinghast Financial for an undisclosed sum, estimated by analysts to be in the mid-8-figure range. The deal marks one of the largest fintech exits of the year. 8 figures, Uncle Ralph said out loud. He sounded like he was choking. That is $10 million. Minimum, I corrected. It is actually significantly more than that. But who is counting? I looked at Grant. His face had gone the color of old oatmeal. He was staring at the screen, mouth open, looking from the headline to me and back again. "This is fake," Grant stammered. She photoshopped it. It is a fake website." "Becky," I said calmly, "refresh the page on your own phone. Go to ForbesMagazine.com. Tell me what you see." Becky lowered her recording hand. She tapped furiously on her screen. "It is there," Becky whispered. She looked up at me with wide, terrified eyes. "It is the front page. It is real. It says she is a tech mogul." Darlene sat down heavily in her chair. She looked like someone had just cut her strings. "But," she sputtered, "but you were carrying a box. You were fired." "I was carrying my prototypes," I said. "And the security audit, the red line you posted about, I wrote red line. It is my software. I was not being escorted out. Mother, I was moving out, because I do not need a job anymore." I stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. "So," I said, my voice ringing clear in the silent hall, "let us reevaluate this contract. You want me to sign over my grandmother's duplex, a property worth maybe $200,000, because you think I am broke." I picked up the document Grant had drafted. "I made more than the value of that house while I was sitting here eating this potato salad," I said. I ripped the document in half. The sound was like a gunshot. "And Grant," I said, turning to him, "you said you know where the rent money went. Good. Because now that I have resources, I am going to hire a forensic accountant to look at every single cent of the Ellington Family Trust, and if I find $1 missing..." I leaned in close to his face. "I will not need a banner to welcome you to your new home, but it will have bars on the windows." Darlene started to cry, but this time, nobody moved to comfort her. They were all too busy looking at the woman on the screen, and then looking at the woman standing in front of them, realizing with dawning horror that they had bet on the wrong horse. "Now," I said, dropping the torn paper onto Grant's empty plate. "Does anyone else have anything they want to say to the failure?" The pen felt heavy in my hand. Like a loaded weapon, I was being asked to point at my own head, around the table. The air was thick with a suffocating mix of anticipation and judgment. My mother, Darlene, was leaning forward, her eyes wide and wet with concern, watching the tip of the ink cartridge hover over the signature line. Grant was tapping his foot, A nervous, rhythmic thud against the linoleum floor. Aunt Marcia and the rest of the intervention committee were murmuring encouragement, convinced they were witnessing a wayward soul finally accepting salvation. They thought this was the climax. They thought this was the moment I surrendered. But in my line of work, you never sign a contract without validating the counterparty, and you certainly do not sign a confession without checking the evidence. I did not sign. Instead, I lowered the pen slowly to the table. I did not let go of it. I just rested it there, parallel to the document that promised to strip me of my autonomy. "Just one question before I sign," I said. My voice was soft, barely louder than the hum of the air conditioning, forcing them to lean in. "I am just curious, who actually drafted this document?" Grant blinked. The question seemed to catch him off guard. "What I told you, it is standard. We had a family attorney look at it." "Which attorney?" I asked, locking eyes with him. "Because the formatting suggests it was downloaded from a free template site, but the specific clause about the rental property that looks custom, Section 4, Paragraph B. Grant Ellington shall assume full residential and operational privileges of the asset located at 42 Oak Street in exchange for management services." I tapped the paper. "Who wrote that part? Grant?" "Mom did," Grant said quickly, shifting in his seat. "I mean, we talked about it. Mom holds the money. I just help her because I am the one in town. You are always busy with your city life." "Right," I said. "So Mom holds the money, all the rent collected from the tenants in Unit B for the last 3 years. It is all in a savings account for the trust. Correct?" "Of course," Darlene chimed in, her voice shrill. "We are saving it for repairs, for the family. Why are you so obsessed with money?" "Cora, this is about your mental health." "I am obsessed with accuracy," I said. I reached down into my tote bag. The sound of the zipper opening was sharp in the silence. I did not pull out a tissue or a checkbook. I pulled out a thick, spiral-bound dossier with a clear plastic cover. I slapped it onto the table. It made a heavy, authoritative thud. "This," I said, opening the cover, "is a forensic accounting of the Ellington family trust accounts, or rather, the accounts that should hold the trust money." I flipped to the 3rd page, where I had highlighted a series of transactions in neon yellow. "Grant," I said, sliding the dossier toward him, "can you explain why the management services for a duplex in Ohio involve monthly transfers to Apex Automotive Leasing in Miami?" Grant froze. His face went from smug to pale in the span of a single heartbeat. "And here," I continued, flipping the page, $4,000 spent at Sapphire Resort and Casino. Is that a maintenance expense? Did the roof need fixing at the blackjack table?" The room began to murmur. Uncle Ralph craned his neck to see the papers. Cousin Becky, who was still recording, zoomed in on the dossier. "That is private," Grant shouted. Lunging for the papers, I pulled them back out of his reach. "It is not private, Grant. It is a public record if you know where to look. And since you used my name, my forged signature to authorize these accounts, I had every right to look." Darlene stood up. Her chair screeched against the floor. The mask of the saintly mother slipped, revealing the cornered animal underneath. "Stop it, Cora," she snapped. "This is exactly what we mean. You are twisting things. Grant needed that car to get to work to manage the property. The trip was a networking event for the family business. It is family money. We share it." "Family money?" I repeated, my voice turning to ice. "So when Grant spends $500 on sneakers, it is family money. But when I leave town to build a career, am I selfish? And when you need to cover up the fact that he has drained the account dry, suddenly I am the one who is failing." I stood up slowly. I picked up the dossier and held it up for the room to see. "Do you want to know why we are really here?" I asked the crowd. "Do you want to know why my mother posted that photo of me with a box? Why did she tell you I was fired? Why did she tell you I was in debt?" "Sit down, Cora," Darlene hissed. "You are making a scene." "I am making a statement," I corrected her. I turned to Cousin Becky's camera. I looked directly into the lens, making sure my face was clear, my eyes steady. My mother and brother needed a scapegoat, I said to the recording. They spent the trust money, they drained it, and with the audit coming up for my 30th birthday, they knew they were going to be caught, so they needed me to be incompetent. They needed me to be unstable, because if I am unstable, I cannot take control of the trust. If I am a failure, Darlene stays in charge, and if Darlene stays in charge, nobody goes to jail for embezzlement. The gasp that went through the room was genuine this time. It wasn't the polite gasp of church gossip. It was the shocked intake of breath that happens when a dirty secret is dragged into the fluorescent light. "That is a lie," Darlene screamed. She was not crying now. She was red-faced, furious. "She is lying. She is paranoid. This is the illness talking. She is hallucinating numbers because she lost her job." "Am I?" I asked. I looked at Grant. He was staring at the table, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. He looked small. He looked guilty. "Grant," I said, "tell them I am lying. Tell them you did not buy a Dodge Charger with the rent money." Grant said nothing. "He doesn't have to answer you," Darlene yelled, moving between me and him like a human shield. "You are cruel. You come back here, a failure, a disgrace, and you try to tear down the only people who care about you. You are pathetic. Cora, no wonder you were fired. No wonder nobody in the city wants you." She looked around the room, desperate to rally her troops. "Don't listen to her," Darlene pleaded with the guests. "She is sick. She is lashing out. She has nothing. She is just trying to hurt us because she lost everything." I looked at my mother. I looked at the fear in her eyes. It was tragic, in a way. She had built her entire identity on being the martyr, and she was terrified that I was about to strip her of her cross. "You are right, Mom," I said calmly. "I did lose something. I lost my tolerance for this." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I placed it face up in the center of the table, right next to the unsigned contract and the damning bank statements. The screen was black for a moment. Then, I tapped it. A timer appeared on the screen. 02, 58, 02, 57. The numbers counted down in bright, white digital font against a stark black background. "What is that?" Aunt Marcia asked, her voice trembling. "Is that a bomb?" "In a manner of speaking," I said. I looked at Darlene. "You said I was fired," I said. "You said I was escorted out of my building. You said I was broke. You built this whole party on that story. You made everyone here believe it." 0240. "I am giving you exactly 3 minutes," I said. 3 minutes to tell them the truth. 3 minutes to admit that you forged my signature. 3 minutes to admit Grant stole the money. 3 minutes to admit that the post on Facebook was a lie designed to trap me. "Or what?" Grant sneered, finally finding his voice, though it cracked. "What are you going to do, call the police? You don't have the guts." "The police are a blunt instrument," I said. "I prefer precision." 0220. "In less than 3 minutes," I said, gesturing to the phone. "The embargo lifts. Do you know what an embargo is? Grant, it is a dam holding back a river, and at 8 o'clock, the dam breaks." "She is bluffing," Darlene said, but her eyes were glued to the counting numbers. "She is just trying to scare us. She has nothing. Look at her dress. It is plain. She probably bought it at a thrift store." 3 minutes, I repeated. "If you tell the truth now, if you confess to the room, we can handle this as a family matter. We can settle the debt quietly. I will not press charges." I leaned in closer. "But if that timer hits 0, I whispered, "and you are still lying, then the world is going to know, not just about the money, but about who I really am." 50. The room was deadly silent. Everyone was watching the phone. The seconds ticked away with agonizing slowness. Tick, tick, tick. "You are crazy," Darlene whispered, but she took a step back. "You are actually crazy." "Maybe," I smiled, "but I am solvent." I sat back down in my chair, crossed my legs, and folded my hands in my lap. I looked like I was waiting for a bus. 2 minutes left, Mom, I said. Tick-tock. Darlene looked at Grant. Grant looked at the door. The guests looked at me. And the numbers on the screen kept falling, dragging the lies down with them, second by second, toward the inevitable explosion. The final minute was the longest 60 seconds of my life. At 7:59, the room was a cacophony of pressure. It felt less like a family gathering and more like a feeding frenzy. The timer on my phone screen was a bright, pulsing countdown 00, 59, 00, 58, but they were ignoring it. They were too focused on breaking me before the clock ran out. "Just sign the damn paper, Cora," Grant spat, his earlier smugness replaced by a frantic aggression. He was tapping the table next to the document, his fingernail making a sharp, irritating clicking sound. "Stop looking at your phone. Look at Mom. She is crying because of you." "I am not crying," Darlene said, though she sniffed loudly for effect. She dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue. "I am just disappointed. We set up this whole evening, this beautiful welcome home, and you are treating it like a joke. You are treating your own salvation like a joke." "It is arrogance," Aunt Marcia declared from the next table, shaking her head so hard her earrings rattled. "She thinks she is too good to be helped. That is why she failed in the city. You cannot help someone who thinks they are better than Jesus." "Cora," Uncle Ralph boomed, leaning in with beer on his breath. "Be smart for once. You are 30 years old. You have no job. You have no husband. You have a mountain of debt. If you walk out of here without signing that, you are walking out into nothing. We are the only safety net you have." I sat perfectly still. I did not look at Ralph. I did not look at Grant. I kept my eyes glued to the screen of my phone. 0010. "Last chance," I whispered. "Sign it," Grant yelled, actually slamming his hand on the table. The plates rattled. "Sign the paper. 003, 00, 02, 00, 01, 00. The timer hit 0. Simultaneously, my phone vibrated. A single text from Tessa Link sent, "Go." I didn't say a word. I didn't scream. I simply tapped the notification, hit the cast icon, and selected the Maple Ridge Hall main display. On the giant television mounted above the stage, the screensaver of floating bubbles vanished. In its place, a web page loaded. It was the homepage of Forbes, arguably the most recognizable business publication in the world. And dominating the screen, taking up the entire feature slot, was a face they all knew. It was my face. But it was not the face of the defeated girl in the grainy parking lot photo. The woman on the screen was wearing a tailored white blazer. Her hair was sharp. Her chin was lifted. She looked powerful. She looked dangerous. The headline was written in bold. Black serif font. "From Shadow to Sunlight. How Cora Ellington Built the Year's Biggest FinTech Exit." Below the headline, the subtext read, "Exclusive. The co-founder of Larkspire Systems breaks her silence on the 8-figure acquisition that is reshaping the risk compliance market." The silence that fell over the room was absolute. It was physically heavy. It was the sound of 30 people simultaneously realizing that their understanding of reality had just snapped in half. Grant stopped tapping the table. His hand hovered in the air. Frozen. Darlene's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked from the screen to me, then back to the screen, her eyes darting frantically as if trying to find a flaw, a trick, a reason why this could not be true. "What is that?" Cousin Becky whispered from behind her camera phone. Her voice was the only sound in the room. Is that real?" I stood up. I picked up the remote control from the table and scrolled down. The text on the screen moved, revealing the first paragraph of the article. "Let me read it for you," I said, my voice projecting clearly to the back of the room. "For 4 years, Cora Ellington has been a ghost. While working a day job in risk analysis, she spent her nights building Larkspire, a proprietary algorithm that has just been purchased by Tillinghast Financial for a sum estimated to be north of $50 million. I paused. I let the number hang in the air. $50 million. 50 million. Uncle Ralph choked. He looked at his beer cup as if he didn't know what it was anymore. That is impossible, Grant stammered. He pushed his chair back, the legs scraping violently against the floor. It is a fake site. She made it up. She is good with computers. It is a prank. Check your phones. I challenged the room. Go to Forbes.com, right now. I watched as half a dozen cousins pulled out their phones. I watched their thumbs fly across the screens, and then I watched the color drain from their faces one by one. It is there, Aunt Marcia said, her voice faint. It is on the main page. It is, oh my lord, Cora. She looked at me with a sudden, jarring shift in expression. Gone was the judgment. In its place was a terrified sort of awe. All eyes turned to Darlene. My mother was staring at the screen. She was reading the words, co-founder and million. She was processing the fact that the daughter she had painted as a destitute failure was, in fact, the most successful person in the history of our bloodline. And then, I watched her brain pivot. It was fascinating and horrifying. I watched the gears grind as she realized the victim narrative was dead, and she needed a new angle to survive. She stood up. She wiped her dry eyes. She clasped her hands together and beamed. Oh, Cora, she cried out, her voice trembling with a fabricated emotion that was even worse than the pity. I knew it. I knew you could do it. She turned to the crowd, spreading her arms wide. Do you see? Darlene shouted, gesturing at me like I was a prize heifer at the county fair. This is what I was doing. I knew she was drifting. I knew she needed a push. I had to be the villain to make her the hero. I posted those things to light a fire under her, to make her fight back. She turned to me, tears now flowing freely, tears of relief, tears of joy that she might still get a cut of the money. I did this for you, baby. I played the bad guy so you would prove me wrong. I am so proud of you for passing the test. It was a masterclass in gaslighting. She was trying to rewrite history in real time. She was trying to claim authorship of my success. The test, I repeated. Yes, Darlene said, reaching for my hand. I knew you were working on something, but you were so quiet. I had to shake you up. And look, now you are on Forbes. We did it. Cora, we did it together. The room seemed to sway. Some of the relatives were nodding. They wanted to believe this version. It was easier than accepting that Darlene was a monster. Wow, Uncle Ralph said, looking relieved. That is some tough love, Darlene. But it worked. No, I said. I pulled my hand away from her. I stepped back. You do not get to do that, I said. You do not get to take credit for my work by claiming your abuse was motivation. Abuse, Darlene gasped, clutching her pearls. Cora, honey, don't use such ugly words. It was a strategy. A strategy, I said. Okay, let's look at the strategy. I tapped my phone again. The Forbes article disappeared from the big screen. In its place, a series of screenshots appeared. These were not from the public Facebook feed. These were the deleted text messages I had recovered from her iPad cloud sync, the ones she sent to Grant 2 days ago. I pointed to the first message. It was blown up to 4 feet tall. Sender mom recipient Grant message. She is coming back weak. We need to crush her down before she gets any ideas. Make sure everyone knows she was fired. If she tries to talk, drown her out. The room went silent again. I scrolled to the next one. Message. Don't let her have a moment of peace. If we break her spirit by Sunday, she will sign the house over just to make it stop. And the final one, the one that made Aunt Marcia cover her mouth with her hand. Message. I don't care if she ends up on the street. She has been ungrateful for too long. We take the house, we take the trust, and then we cut her loose. Is that motivation, Mother? I asked, my voice ringing off the rafters. Is crush her down a motivational technique? Is cut her loose part of the tough love? Darlene stood frozen. The evidence was looming over her, giant and undeniable. She couldn't spin this. These were her words, in her voice. date-stamped and verified. That is out of context," Grant shouted. He lunged across the table. "Turn it off. You hacked her phone. That is illegal." He grabbed my phone. I didn't move. I didn't have to. The double doors at the back of the hall banged open. Grant froze mid-lunge. Walking into the room was Miles Carter. He was not wearing the casual clothes of a Briarwood local. He was wearing a three-piece navy suit that cost more than Grant's car. He carried a leather briefcase in one hand and a stack of papers in the other. He looked like a shark entering a goldfish bowl. "Step away from my client," Miles said. His voice wasn't loud, but it projected with the authority of a courtroom order. Grant scrambled back, knocking over his chair. "Who are you?" "I am Cora Ellington's legal counsel," Miles said, walking steadily toward the head table. The crowd parted for him instantly. He placed the briefcase on the table next to the potato salad. "And you must be Grant," Miles said, looking him up and down with distaste. "And Darlene." He handed a thick envelope to Darlene. She took it automatically, her hands shaking so badly the paper rattled. "What is this?" she whispered. "That is a formal notice of intent to sue," Miles stated clearly. "For defamation of character, tortious interference with business relations, and intentional infliction of emotional distress." He turned to Grant and handed him a separate, thicker envelope. "And for you, Mr. Ellington," Miles said. "This is a notification of a forensic audit regarding the Ellington Family Trust. We have already flagged unauthorized withdrawals totaling $43,000 over the last 36 months. We have also filed a motion to inspect the notary journal regarding the fraudulent signature on the management agreement." "Fraud," Aunt Marcia squeaked. "Fraud," Miles confirmed, turning to the room. "And not just civil fraud. Forging a signature on a legal document to misappropriate funds is a felony, as is conspiracy to commit grand larceny." Grant looked like he was going to vomit. He slumped against the wall, all the fight draining out of him. Darlene looked at the papers in her hand. Then she looked at the screen where her cruel text messages were still displayed. Then she looked at the faces of her friends and family. She realized, finally, that there was no way out. She couldn't charm her way out. She couldn't guilt her way out. So she did the only thing she had left. She burst into tears. But these weren't the pretty, silent tears of a martyr. These were ugly, heaving sobs of a woman who had lost control. "I just wanted the family to be together," she wailed, sinking into her chair. "I just wanted to keep the house. Why are you doing this to me? Cora, I am your mother." She looked around the room, pleading with her eyes for someone, anyone, to come to her side. Usually, this was the moment the aunts would rush in. Usually, this was when the tissues came out. But tonight, nobody moved. The church ladies stood with their arms crossed. Uncle Ralph was staring at Grant with a look of pure disgust. Cousin Becky had lowered her phone, but she wasn't rushing to comfort her aunt. Then, a voice cut through the sobbing. It was Mrs. Higgins, the treasurer of the church group, a woman who had known Darlene for 20 years. "Darlene," Mrs. Higgins said, her voice sharp. "You told us Cora was broke. You told us she was a charity case." "She is," Darlene sobbed. "She was, but the screen says she is worth $50 million, Mrs. Higgins said. "And the lawyer says Grant stole $40,000. Mrs. Higgins took a step forward. "We donated money, Darlene," she said. "Last month, you took up a collection for Cora's rehabilitation fund. You said you needed to pay her rent." I looked at my mother. I didn't know about this. She had been soliciting donations in my name. "Where is that money?" Darlene, Mrs. Higgins asked. "If Cora didn't need it, did Grant spend that too?" Darlene stopped crying. She went dead silent. Grant looked up, panic in his eyes. That money is safe," Grant stammered. "It is in the account." "Which account?" Miles asked smoothly. "The one at the casino, or the one at the car dealership?" The room erupted. It wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a roar of angry questions. People were realizing they hadn't just been duped emotionally, they had been duped financially. They had been unwitting accomplices to a grift. I stood in the center of the chaos, feeling strangely calm. The storm I had summoned had arrived, and it was tearing the roof off the house of lies Darlene had built. I said to Miles, we should go. I think so too, Miles agreed. I looked at my mother one last time. She was shrinking in her chair, surrounded by angry neighbors demanding answers. She looked small. She looked pathetic. And for the first time in my life, she looked powerless. Happy Mother's Day, Mom, I whispered. I turned my back on them and walked toward the door. I didn't look back at the screen. I didn't look back at Grant. I walked out into the cool night air, leaving them to the wolves they had raised. The aftermath of Sunday night did not feel like a victory lap. It felt like the sudden, ringing silence after a car crash. By Monday morning, the dynamic in Briarwood had shifted with violent speed. Darlene had tried to scrub the internet clean at 3 a.m. She deleted the Facebook posts about my failure. She deleted the photo of me with the box. She even deleted her prayer request for my financial soul. But she forgot the golden rule of the digital age: screenshots are forever, and the internet never forgets. Cousin Becky's video of the confrontation at the hall had not just stayed on her phone. She had sent it to her sister, who sent it to a group chat, and by sunrise, it was circulating through the church community like wildfire. The image of me standing next to the Forbes headline while Grant cowered in his chair was the new defining image of the Ellington family. My mother tried to call me 7 times before 9 o'clock. I did not answer. Instead, I sat in a conference room at a reputable law firm in downtown Cleveland, neutral ground, that Miles had arranged, and waited for them to arrive. We were not there for a family reunion. We were there for a settlement conference. When Darlene and Grant walked in, they looked like ghosts. Grant was wearing a hoodie, his eyes bloodshot, looking everywhere except at me. Darlene was dressed in black, as if she were mourning the death of her reputation. She brought a lawyer with her, a local man named Mr. Henderson, who looked like he would rather be anywhere else on earth. "Let us make this quick," Miles said, opening a binder on the mahogany table. "We have prepared a formal complaint to be filed with the civil court by close of business today. It includes counts of defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and fraud. However, my client has authorized me to offer a settlement in lieu of litigation." "We deleted the posts," Darlene said quickly, her voice trembling. "It is gone, Cora. Can't we just move on?" "You deleted the evidence of your cruelty," I said, speaking for the first time. "You did not delete the damage." Miles slid a document across the table. "This is the demand. First, we require a public retraction, not a vague statement about misunderstandings, a specific legal admission that the previous posts were false, that Cora Ellington was never fired, was never in debt, and that the claims were made without merit." "I can't post that," Darlene whispered, clutching her purse. "People will think I am a liar." "You are a liar, Darlene," I said calmly. "The only choice you have now is whether you want to be a liar who admitted it, or a liar who was exposed by a judge." "Second," Miles continued, ignoring her outburst, "we have the matter of the Ellington Family Trust. This was the hammer blow. Over the last 12 hours, Miles and I had done a deep dive into my grandmother's original will. We found a clause that Darlene, in her arrogance, had either forgotten or ignored. It was the fiduciary duty clause. It stated clearly that if the acting trustee was found to have engaged in malfeasance or allowed the assets to be misappropriated, the trust would immediately dissolve, and the assets would transfer directly to the primary beneficiary, me, regardless of age or status. But we needed proof of malfeasance, and we found it in the notary journal. "We spoke to Linda Stevens this morning," Miles said. "The notary who stamped the management agreement giving Grant control of the rental property." Grant flinched. "It turns out Linda keeps excellent records," Miles said. "She confirmed that on the date the document was signed, Cora Ellington was not present. She admitted that Darlene Ellington brought the document in already signed and claimed it was an emergency, Linda is terrified of losing her license, so she has already signed an affidavit confirming the forgery. I watched Darlene's face turn a shade of gray I had never seen before. "That is a felony, Mom," I said softly. "Forgery, suborning a notary, and Grant. The $43,000 you spent on cars and casinos, that is grand larceny. We have the bank records. We have the forgery. We have everything." Mr. Henderson, their lawyer, leaned over and whispered frantically to Darlene. I heard snippets of it, indefensible. "Jail time. Take the deal." Darlene looked at me. For the first time, the mask of the victim was completely gone. There was just fear, naked, shivering fear. "What do you want?" she asked. Her voice was hollow. "I want the house," I said. "But not for me." I slid a second document across the table. "You are going to sign the property over to an irrevocable trust." I explained. "The trust will be managed by a third-party administrator. I will not see a dime of the rent, and neither will you." "Then who gets it?" Grant asked, confused. "The rent income will go to a scholarship fund for students in Briarwood who need financial aid to leave town," I said. "To help kids like the one I used to be. Kids who need to escape parents like you." Darlene flinched as if I had slapped her. "And Grant," I continued, "you are evicted, effective immediately. You have 7 days to vacate the premises. You are going to get a job, and you are going to pay back every cent you stole to the trust. If you miss a payment, the settlement is void, and I file the police report for the larceny." Grant looked at his mother for help, but she was staring at the table, defeated. "And finally," I said, "the penalty clause." "What penalty?" Darlene asked. "If you ever post about me again," I said, "if you ever mention my name, my business, or my personal life on social media or in a public forum, if you ever try to use me for sympathy or status again, you will owe a liquidated damages penalty of $10,000 per infraction. It is an automatic trigger." "You are gagging me," Darlene said, tears welling up. "You are silencing your own mother." "I am buying my peace," I corrected her. "You spent 30 years talking to me. You spent 30 years telling the world who I was, that I was difficult, that I was arrogant, that I was a failure. Now, you are going to be quiet." Mr. Henderson read the document. He sighed, took off his glasses, and looked at Darlene. "Ms. Ellington, considering the exposure regarding the notary fraud and the embezzlement, this is an incredibly generous offer. If this goes to court, Grant is looking at 3 to 5 years in prison. You could be facing charges as an accomplice." 3 to 5 years. The reality of it hit Grant. He wasn't the golden child anymore. He was a criminal suspect. "Sign it, Mom," Grant whispered. His voice was shaking. "Please, I don't want to go to jail." Darlene looked at her son. Then she looked at me. "Is this what you wanted?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and sorrow. "To humiliate us, to strip us of everything, is this your revenge?" "Cora." I looked at her. I thought about the potato salad at the church hall. I thought about the years of snide comments about my weight, my clothes, my ambition. I thought about the box she claimed I was carrying out of Northline. "No," I said. "Revenge would be putting you in handcuffs. Revenge would be letting Grant go to prison and watching you explain to your church friends why your son is a felon. Revenge would be destroying you the way you tried to destroy me." I leaned forward. "This is not revenge, Mom. This is a boundary. I am not doing this to hurt you. I am doing this to ensure that you never have the power to hurt me again. I am taking away the tools you use to manipulate people. I am taking away the money. I am taking away the narrative." "But I love you," she sobbed. "I did it because I love you." "No," I said. "You did it because you needed to control me. Love doesn't require a notary to forge a signature. Love doesn't require a public shaming campaign." I pointed to the pen. "Sign the papers, Darlene, or Miles calls the district attorney." She picked up the pen. Her hand shook violently. She signed the retraction. She signed the property transfer. She signed the settlement agreement. Grant signed next, sniffing loudly, looking like a child who had finally been told no for the first time in his life when it was done. Miles gathered the papers. He checked the signatures. He nodded to me. "It is finished," Miles said. We stood up to leave. "Cora," Darlene said. I stopped at the door. She was looking at me with a strange expression. It wasn't hate. It was confusing. She genuinely did not understand how the script had flipped. "What am I supposed to tell people?" she asked. "When they ask why you don't come around. When they ask about the house." "Tell them the truth," I said. I opened my bag and pulled out a copy of the Forbes magazine. I had picked it up at the newsstand in the lobby. I tossed it onto the table. It slid across the mahogany surface and stopped right in front of her. "Tell them I grew up," I said. I turned and walked out. The walk from the conference room to the elevator felt like floating. I expected to feel sad. I expected to feel a sense of loss for the family I was leaving behind. But I didn't. I felt light. I felt like I had been carrying a backpack full of stones for 3 decades, and I had finally set it down. As the elevator doors closed, cutting off the sight of my mother weeping over a legal document, I thought about the final paragraph of the Forbes interview. The reporter had asked me what my philosophy on leadership was. I recited the quote in my head. "I used to stay silent because I thought protecting the family structure was more important than the truth. I thought peace was better than conflict. But I learned that peace built on lies isn't peace. It is just a ceasefire waiting to break. Now, I believe that truth is the only thing that actually saves a family, even if it destroys the version of the family that existed before." I walked out of the building and into the bright sunlight of the Cleveland afternoon. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from my bank. The wire transfer from the acquisition had cleared. 8 figures. But looking at the sky, I realized the money wasn't the wealth. The wealth was the silence. The wealth was knowing that my name belonged to me again. I took a deep breath of the city air. It smelled like gasoline and coffee and freedom. I didn't have a mother to go home to. I didn't have a brother to protect. But for the first time in my life, I had myself, and that was enough. Thank you so much for listening to Cora's story. It is a heavy journey, but I hope it reminds you that your dignity is not a currency you have to trade for anyone's love, not even your family's. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. Are you listening while driving in Texas, cooking dinner in London, or relaxing in Sydney? Please drop a comment below and let me know your location and what you thought of Cora's decision. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the Veronica Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and smash that hype button so we can share this message of strength with more people around the world. Your support means everything.